This is a big one. I've had a lot of fun putting this together. We're going to talk about all the rares in the game, or almost all the rares in every single situation we would use them. All the dungeons, all the bosses, what are the best rares and which ones do you really want to focus on? What's going to do the most damage for you? What's going to save your butt? What's going to remove the buffs or remove debuffs or heal block? I've got you covered, and there's some really good rares because you're going to need to use these if you're free to play or even a low spender. Rares are awesome, and they're going to help us get that legendary gear, help us do massive damage on bosses, get through the Goblin Cave, and I've got it all on this sheet here. Let's start off on the chart. You're going to see a whole bunch of duplicate rares going through here, and those are the ones we really need to focus on. Those are really and truly the top tier rare champions in this game. Grave of Venom, the DPS in the back, if you watch my videos with that placement, they don't take any damage. But we want those rare DPSers to do decreased attack if they can. So getting Arena in here and Sigrid to drop that decreased attack of 50% is really strong for us in Grave of Venom so that our main tank Horus doesn't take that much damage. Any healer will do really well in here, but it's good to have Hexandra. It's good to have our main character with shields to shield us, because to do that dungeon, all we got to do is survive. Have our tank survive. And then decrease attack again will do really well. And these are the two main ones that are so good here and then great other areas in the game. Megan, or Megan with the extra G, she's a pretty good healer. She can do increased defense along with her heal over time, which is really good in this dungeon. Defense is everything. Up that defense, you'll mitigate so much damage. I actually just did a video on this about gearing out Horus, and it's free to play, getting you that epic gear on stage 5 no matter what your account is. So easy to do. With this though, she can remove a decreased defense as well. It's part of her passive. So anytime she uses her skill, her battle skill, or her ultimate, if there's a decreased defense debuff up, she'll remove it off that main tank. Now that debuff kind of drops pretty quick, but still, this wouldn't be bad for your additional healer that we put at the top, along with Hexandra and our main character doing those shields. And any healer will really do well. Grover, this lightning rare, is amazing in Grave of Curse. I've done a dedicated video on this. He steals 2 buffs. All we got to do is remove 2 buffs. His ultimate is fast to keep up with the boss. With him on your team, it makes it so that you have a lot of other slots you can fill with all sorts of different heroes. Having him in there is just amazing. You've got your main character to put up those shields, so when the boss hits those shields with his ultimate, he gets a really small shield himself. We've got Hexandra in here because she's free to keep your team alive. Arena's in here to remove 1 buff and to do decrease attack of 50%. We've got Zadie here, which is the rat you just saw a minute ago, the fire rare. He looks like a rat with 2 swords. He can remove 1 buff. He does really good damage. He can do attack down. Pretty good to go in this dungeon, but you always need to remove 2 buffs. So you'd want to bring in something like Zadie along with Arena if you didn't have Grover. Then we have this girl. She is a fire rare tank kind of character. She can remove 1 buff. She can actually get the job done, but overall, she's a very, very lackluster rare. I would not level her up. Hopefully you have a combination of these other ones, or an epic or a legendary that can remove buffs, and you won't have to worry about leveling her up. We also have this one, Jorana. She's pretty cool. I think she's really good at removing at least 1. But it's every 3 basic attacks she removes 1 buff from the enemy. The way basic attacks work is they'll throw it out, and you can see it range. They'll throw 1 basic attack, 2 basic attack, but then when they do their battle skill, you see the animation for the battle skill, and the basic attack actually stops. It doesn't give you like a ghost basic attack where you can see damage actually going up. It completely stops to do the animation for your ultimate or your battle skill, and then it goes back to doing a basic attack. So her attack speed, I think, is 2 seconds or every 2.5 seconds. I don't think she's super reliable on removing 1 buff. She's definitely not going to remove 2 buffs, but she does do a team-wide HP shield like your main character, so that we can stop that ultimate from hitting hard and getting big shields on himself. Ancient Battlefield we haven't unlocked yet. I think we're going to unlock it tomorrow. Basically, the boss has a lot of buffs we want to remove, but we cannot have buffs on our heroes, because when he dispels buffs off of heroes, he gets a permanent damage increase, and it's too much. Your team will wipe. HP shields do not count as buffs. So somebody like Arena, removing a buff and doing decreased attack is perfect, but we need to remove, I think, 2 in there, or if not 3. The main character with the HP shield is great because that doesn't count as a buff, Any healer that doesn't put up a buff is good. You don't want to get those heal over times. You don't want to get that increased defense because that boss will just get crazy, and we'll see him tomorrow. So we'll then spread this out with some more rare heroes that work really well. And we wouldn't want to bring our little boy Grover in there, stealing 2 buffs from him, because then he would have 2 buffs for the boss then to dispel and ramp up that damage permanently. You will die. The heretical runes we just got to, it's the Phoenix with the 2 little Phoenix eggs. Those 2 birds, if they get off their ultimates, they heal the boss for a massive amount of damage. So Sigrid is really good here to apply that block heal and decrease attack. She's great. Sigrid is good in a lot of areas in this game because we need to block damage in the Tempest. We need to block it heretical runes. We need to block damage in the new one, Grave of Rot, we just unlocked. And then there's one other thing that she's pretty good at too. Some people swear she's good in the Goblin Layer, but that's only if you have debuffs up. For her ultimate, if you have a debuff up on the enemy, she will hit everybody with her ultimate, whoever has a debuff up. So as long as you do, going through the Goblin Cave, she'll do kind of an AoE, as long as they do have some form of debuff up on them. So she can work there since we're leveling her up for 3 dungeons, dedicating her to 3 dungeons because she's worth it with the heal block and the decreased attack. You could then try to get her in the Goblin Cave. We'll get down there in just a minute. So these are the real good ones for this because we're doing AoE damage here. We're decrease attack here. There's no buff to remove, but Arena is still amazing. The bird puts up a flame debuff on us. And if you don't take that flame debuff up, it will hit anybody. It'll attack the main target, and then anybody behind it or anybody on the map with a flame debuff will then be hit again. You have to take it off. And if you slow the game down, you can see it. You can see the main bird hit that main person, and then anybody else with a fire debuff, you'll see a fireball shoot from their ass and go to the other heroes. So get that off with Arena, or you could use Fitz to pull all those debuffs over to himself. And Fitz is going to be massive, massive in Grave of Rot down here with all those debuffs. Fitz's Necrosis, he looks like a skeleton. He's a rare, of course, because we're going over rare, but his ability to pull all debuffs onto himself is pretty sweet. And if you need to make sure they stay off of him, you have to put him in high resistance. His battle skill can remove 1 debuff from him, but when you're pulling all the debuffs, then you might need something extra to take that off. Here in the heretical runes, if he pulls all the burns, it's probably just gonna be 1 big stack of burn and he can remove it himself. Over here in Grave of Rot, when he's pulling like, I don't know, 10 or 15 different, all these debuffs onto himself, we might need somebody else over there to start clearing them off of him so we can keep him alive down here in Grave of Rot. But by far, he's gonna be the best person you can bring in there. Whether it be epic or legendary, he's probably gonna be top tier key for Grave of Rot. Sigrid, again, to get that heal block. I think we already mentioned that, and to do damage and to do the decrease attack. Grave of Rot, we just unlocked this. This has the big old ooze monster that eats your tank, gets heal over time once he's eating your tank, like takes so much of that health. I need to put comments of what this does here. Gets all that health back, so we need to block it with Sigrid again. Decrease attack also with Sigrid. She's great in so many places, right? We've got Arena in there to remove all the debuffs. This boss puts up poison, puts up heal block, and then puts up speed penalty, so we don't get our moves as fast. It's good to get all those off so we can survive. We can't even heal with that heal block on. That's why something like your main character in an ice form putting up those HP shields, you can still mitigate some of that damage. That's why Fitz in here, removing all of it from your whole entire team, that little skeleton is gonna be key. And then you can bring Inna in here to remove 1 debuff every time she does her heal over time. It's not enough to bring her by herself though. You need somebody else to remove more so that we can get rid of all those debuffs and be able to heal. Ravatrix is right underneath this. She is the poison lady we fight in the Fey Meander, the big plant, of course, removing all those poisons, getting high resistance, bringing in somebody like Inna or Fitz will work fantastic there. The Goblin Layer is about doing AoE damage. We have 2 forms in our main character where we do AoE. We've got Arena doing AoE on both of her moves, good hard-hitting moves. We've got this Summoner who does 2 AoE moves, and they're really hard-hitting moves. I don't know where else we're gonna use him though. Really good for the Goblin Layer, but where else are we going to use this Summoner until we start testing out summoning teams, which I'm doing on the test server, so I'll get back to you on that one, but he is an option for you if you do not have good AoE heroes. Then we've got our fan favorite Usha. I love her. She's level 90. I use her in the Vortex boss. I use her against all other bosses to do a lot of damage. If I can slot her in there, I use her going through all the domains as my actual tank, as long as I'm kind of a little bit stronger than I need to be to go through there, and I use her on the Vortex boss. And even in the Goblin domain, she is topping the charts for my damage. She has that 3x3 square. She puts shields on herself on her battle skill, gives that increased attack on herself. But with that shield, I can run her in the front. I could run AoE DPS behind me. I run her in the front by herself, no healing. She puts that shield on herself and kind of keeps herself alive. 99% of the time, she makes it to the very end of the dungeon because she's able to put that shield up enough. My whole team back there is able to DPS enough. And then I have my main healer and lightning spec so that when he does his AoE, he stuns them quite often because lightning doesn't do that much less damage than fire. Not at all. So do that lightning with that control if you can. Vaska is a rare necrosis summoner, and it's really good for this hero because this hero can be your lead position person because it's a summoner, but it does one really cool AoE and it keeps itself alive. It does self-healing. Whenever he does damage, whenever his pet does damage, even though he's only got one AoE, that's enough. And he'll be running in the front line, taking all the damage from the goblins, grouping them up so all the back of your AoE guys can just AoE them down. That's where I would use Vaska. Edgar's kind of the same thing. We've got another necrosis with some shields and a hard-hitting ultimate. I don't like Rally, but this one is okay. He's got a decent ultimate. If you want to use him for AoE, for that one AoE he has, and that's all the options you have, you can. But I don't know of anywhere else in the game I would really use this guy. Same thing for this Radiant Rare. I really hope you have something else to use. They do have one AoE ability, and you could put them in the front to group the goblins up, but I just don't think it's worth leveling up that rare. And then we've got Sigrid, but Sigrid only works if you have other people to apply debuffs to the goblin before she does her ultimate. It's kind of hard to match this up. If you have something like Varesh, he's an epic. He does AoE to the whole entire screen and can put block buffs up on the enemy. If you have somebody like that going before she does her ultimate and it's timed properly, it can work. A lot of times I'll run her through there and you can't get it matched up, or she'll do her ultimate when goblins are running forward, but there's only one goblin there and she only hits one target, but she still does do really good damage. She can top the damage charts. You just have to have debuffs up, and it's not that hard with some heroes. If you have some that can really throw out the debuffs along with their AoE damage and they go first before she does her ultimate, then you've got it set since you're using her in like 3 other dungeons, like really using her. Maybe even 4 other dungeons because she's that good. Frost domain is the easiest domain. The boss just tries to put up decreased attack on you. You remove that with Inna. You remove it with whoever else you want to. You bring in some heals and you just tank out the Frost domain. Easiest domain out there. Flame domain, I just learned that if you space out your heroes when the ultimate happens, even if you had 3 to 5 stacks of flames on you, your heroes won't actually die. And if you do decrease attack up before she does that ultimate, you're definitely not going to die. All you got to do is make sure you completely space out all your heroes, and then you don't even have to remove this debuff. But I still have people in here that can remove a debuff, decrease attack, decrease accuracy. I've got all those, and we've already gone over all these. So you start to see a trend, right? You start to see a pattern of these really good rares and the ones that we're gonna level up. Now this one I believe can be used in any dungeon. She's another necrosis. She has nothing to do with summons. She's a dark elf looking female, and she has a recharge penalty as a rare, but she gets to hit 3 times on that ultimate at a 75% chance to land this. So she's gonna land it. And each of those hits has a chance to decrease the ultimate by 10%, which is really strong. You're taking down that ultimate, you're putting that speed penalty on them of 30%, so their ultimate gauge doesn't go as fast, and then she does the accuracy penalty as well. So I think she's going to be really good in a whole lot of dungeons, and I need to do some testing on her to see that, and we'll do a dedicated video on her if that's the case. If we can really slow the boss down, take away their turn meter, and then make it to where we can survive, do everything we need to do, it's going to be amazing. And then you can see all the other ones we have here, same ones. Tempest Domain. That's the one with the dragon that comes out that gets the heal over time. So he puts out his little baby dragons. If you don't kill those little dragons, that means he gets more heal over times when he comes back. Well, you can block that with her and decrease attack with Sigrid. Another great place for her to go. Last one, the Temporal Vortex. I'm testing things on the test server, so I don't have dedicated numbers for you. We know Usha is top tier. No doubt about that. Zethos, I'm not sure about. I don't know if he's going to be. I'm guessing he's going to be. We will see. Don't take my word for this one. I got to test out Zethos. We know the other one is. And I have to test out some other rare heroes to see if we have some really great single target damage. If you know of any, let me know down below and I'll put them here for the Vortex boss and I'll test them out on the test server. So I said I would come back in here, but we're not going to go over all the rares. There are some rares that you can use in place of the best ones that I just showed you. Like this guy's old school and he can actually block healing. I think he's the only other rare that can do block healing, but it's only on his ultimate and you have to book him out to get a good chance to do it. I used to use this guy. This is like the only guy I had on my free-to-play account. And he might be the only guy you have on your free-to-play account. So there are a few other alternatives. Not many, though, for the ones I've showed you. I'm working on all the healers to see who has the best raw healing. There's also this healer that I want to test out and put high enlightenment on. He's new, and I think he can do just crazy amount of healing. But I've got to test it out. So I want to pit all the healers against each other and see who the best is and in what dungeon scenario they're the best. So I will do that. I will come out with a dedicated video for that, for the damage on the Vortex boss, and any other rares that we find that are amazing for any dungeon that we've covered. We'll get those on the list as well. Thanks so much for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate the love and the support. I will see you all in a video soon.